Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell. You'll get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And when I'm not asking Bruce, hey, how big was Batista's? Well, you know. One of the things I like to do is help people save money. And if you're watching this video right now and you're in a 30-year loan, man, you're overpaying your single biggest bill and you may not even realize it. I want you to do a little experiment for me. Take your calculator out, multiply your monthly house payment by 360 payments. That's how many payments there are in a 30-year loan. That big scary number, that's your total of payments. You're looking at that number? You know you can do better. Keep more of your own money right now and go to savewithconrad.com. Or maybe you've got credit card debt. Man, it's not a matter of if I can save you money with that. Your average interest rate on a credit card is more than 20%. And by the way, all the interest you pay on those credit cards, it's not tax deductible. Whereas the mortgage interest, well, that is tax deductible. So if you owe this debt, it's up to you how to pay it back. Doesn't it make sense to get the cheapest rate possible and the greatest tax deduction possible? Find out how much money you can save right now for free at savewithconrad.com. You don't need perfect credit. Even scores in the 500s can be approved, and it's no cost out of pocket. But maybe best of all, we're licensed in more than 40 states. We can help more families than ever before. But how much can we save you? Find out right now for free with a quick quote from savewithconrad.com.
You are sitting ringside with David Penzer on Radio Influence.
Welcome to another week of Sitting Ringside. My name is David Penzer, and we thank you for tuning in to all the excitement and fun that we're going to have this week on this podcast. I'm going to be talking in just a few moments to a friend, and it's an interesting story, Mr. Sonny Onoo. Interesting story about how he went from being friends with Mr. Eric Bischoff to making that into a professional wrestling career. And the thing about Sonny is, because he was friends with the boss, and probably one of the reasons that he initially got an in there, they could have been a lot of backlash in this business. As you know, it's a closed business, so to speak, not near as much as it was back in the 70s and early 80s, but it's still a closed business. And a guy like Sonny, when there's only so many spots, it would have been very easy for him to have. We're going to ask him if he had any backlash, but there was not a lot that I could think of as far as, and I'll tell you the reason why. The reason why is because he was a super nice guy, super respectful guy. And, if he would have come in there, hey, I'm Eric's buddy and, I'm better than you and don't mess with me, or I'm going to stooge you off, and, anything like that, it could have absolutely easily gone the opposite direction for a guy like Sonny Onoo. But he's just a nice guy. I think that'll come across during the interview, because every time I talk to him, we have a great conversation. It's just a lesson in life. A lot of people say it's who you know, not what you know, and there's a lot of reality in that. But who you know might get you in the door, but how you act once you get in the door tells a lot about how long you're going to last. And that's in sports, that's in entertainment, that's in business, on Wall Street, in politics, you name it. So it's just an interesting story, and he's a great guy, and interested to see what he's up to now. We're going to ask him about the lawsuit with WCW at the end, if he has any relationship at this point with Vince Russo, and how his relationship with Eric is, and his entire career. He also was a pretty bigwig in the martial arts world back in the 70s and early 80s. So we'll talk to him about how he got involved in that. And I think he's still dangling in that a little bit in the senior division. So, but plus we have your questions. We have a couple of questions from Twitter. So if you have any input on this show, as I say every single week, please be sure to hit us up. I'm at David Penzer on Twitter, all one word. And at Penzer Ringside is the Twitter handle for the show. And want to thank Raj and the guys at Wrestling Inc. and their show for having me on Wednesday. It was fun to be on the other side. Didn't have to prepare. Just got on the phone and talked. So we talked a little bit about WCW, Global Force Wrestling, and my career. Talked a little bit about wrestler pay. I guess there's a big dispute they're having with last week's guest, Matt Morgan, who is a guest every Monday. They review Raw. and I guess there was a dispute about wrestler pay. So spoke a little bit about that. So you can check that out. Go to Wrestling Inc. But want to thank Raj and the gang having me on. This 50-plus-year-old guy couldn't figure out how to get onto their whatever kind of program they were using, so I was a little late. I was ready on time, but I was a little late. Say, speaking of Raw, very close to SummerSlam, just a little more than a week away. Wondering what your thoughts are on SummerSlam. A lot of big main event quality matches. I'm looking at the card here in front of me. When the number 10 and 11 matches listed are Finn Balor versus Bray Wyatt and John Cena versus Baron Corbin. That's a stacked pay-per-view, so to speak. So interested what you think of the run. Should be a fantastic match between AJ Styles and Kevin Owens. Those two, as everybody knows, go out and knock it out of the ballpark. And Shane McMahon would be the special guest referee. So something tells me, and we'll see if I'm correct, I have no inside information whatsoever, but something tells me we might be seeing a Kevin Owens-Shane McMahon match at WrestleMania next year. But that's just a guess. One of the more interesting matches, I think, is Jinder Mahal defending the SmackDown Championship, the World Championship, against Shinsuke Nakamura. I know that Jinder Mahal, when he became the champion, and we talked to Kevin Sullivan a little bit about this a few weeks ago, it kind of came out of the blue. And the word was that WWE was trying to promote to the fans in India, which is a huge, huge potential market for them. And it would make sense to have an Indian. And then as you know, as the feud between Jinder and Randy Orton grew and they did the blow-off match, or one of the blow-off matches, they had the great Khali come out and help Jinder Mahal. So they're all in, obviously, on the Indian market. So the question is, do you put the belt on Nakamura? Because that would be the thought process would be you build Nakamura to become the main player on SmackDown. There's all kinds of dream matches. They've already happened, but in other places, dream matches defending against AJ Styles, defending against Sami Zayn, defending against, maybe a Roman Reigns or a Samoa Joe if they switch brands, Randy Orton. There's a ton of, Finn Balor versus Nakamura for the world title. It could be cool. So that one I'm pretty stumped on. I think at the end of the day, Nakamura ends up somewhere down the road at WrestleMania with the world title. But to me, if you're building that market in India and you're going after the billion-plus people that are in India to try to sell them WWE Live Wrestling, WWE Raw, WWE Network, then you keep the title on Jinder Mahal and Singh brothers as his sidekicks, and maybe another appearance by the great Khali. And even though that's not the popular thought process, I'm sure 99.9% of wrestling fans and pundits are hoping for a Nakamura win and that Jinder goes back down to mid-card guy. But as somebody who's been on the business side of professional wrestling at sports entertainment, to me, I think you go all in with the Indian market. I really do. And like I said, I think you eventually get the belt to Nakamura. I could see Nakamura against AJ Styles as one of the main events of WrestleMania. That would be crazy for them not to do that. And but if I was booking it, which I'm 100% not even close, they're not even listening to the word I have to say. We all know that, so let's be clear. But if I was booking it, if I was doing fantasy booking, I'd keep the belt on Mahal for another few months, maybe until the Royal Rumble, and give him credibility, and then maybe give him another run after WrestleMania. If you're all in on the Indian market, if you decided it's not going the right way, and nobody knows what way WWE has decided to move on that market, then giving it to Nakamura makes a lot of sense. So that's my 2 cents on that. The main event, as we know, 4-way match: Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, Samoa Joe, Braun Strowman. And that one could go a lot of ways. You would think that 2 of those 4 wrestlers will be the main event of WrestleMania 2018 in New Orleans. And just because I know the guy and he's a super guy and worked really hard to get where he is. I guess in my heart, I hope they give Joe a chance to run with it for a little while. Again, my business mind says that probably won't happen. And I know they're really trying to get Roman Reigns to be the top guy. Brock Lesnar's making the type of money, at least until his contract is over or renewed, where you really have to keep him in the mix. And Braun Strowman has really become a talented big man who has gotten over with the fans. So if I'm a betting guy, just like with Mahal and Nakamura, I would say that Joe is probably the odd man out. But in my heart, I hope they'll give him a run. And if not now, hopefully down the road they'll give him a run. I think he's really came in and proven himself. Maybe even people who weren't fans of Samoa Joe have really been impressed with his work and his character, and he's a super good guy. Not that means anything as far as what happens in the professional wrestling business, but it's always nice to see the good guys get a little bit of acknowledgement. For full acknowledgement. I don't know any of the other three, so I'm sure they're all good guys as well. Don't want any heat with any of those three big men for sure. But I do know Samoa Joe, so got to go with my buddy. But I would think that they would probably take the title off of Brock, give him an excuse to go away for a little while, because he has said if he loses, he is going to quit. He's not quitting, but it will give him a chance to go on vacation and get him off storylines. From what I understand, he's already booked for some more events, so it doesn't look like my prediction's going to happen at all. But we will see how it goes. I know that one of the big 4 pay-per-views is SummerSlam, so it's always interesting, especially as we get closer to the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania. It's always interesting to see where they're going, because word has it that the card for WrestleMania is pretty much booked. As Kevin Sullivan said when we interviewed him, he learned from Vince McMahon Sr. to book a year ahead. And that's pretty much what they do with WrestleMania every year. And it's just how you navigate throughout the year with the injuries and such, and the things that happen that you can't predict to get to where you want to be. And that's always the interesting part. Not so much laying out what's a year ahead, so much how you get there with the twists and turns that life brings you. Also interested in Finn Valor versus Bray Wyatt. I understand Finn's going to be the demon. I dig that character, and I know the fans dig it too. So that should be an interesting match as well. So be sure to let me know what you think about my evaluation of some of the SummerSlam matches. Again, at David Penzer or at Penzer Ringside. Love to chat with you on social media. So hit me up and let's talk. See what you think. So I want to introduce right now a gentleman who has done...
I get it. It's a wrestling podcast, but he's saving us money on our mortgage. Do you really trust this process? The reviews don't lie. 5-star review after 5-star review. We make it fast, we make it easy, and it's no cost or obligation. Give us a shot to earn your business. I'm telling you, you'll be glad you did, especially if you like keeping more of your own money. You don't need perfect credit or money out of your pocket, so what are you waiting for? Hurry to SaveWithConrad.com.
Done a little bit of everything in his life, and has no ego that I've ever seen because of it. And it's always good when the good guys do well, as I said earlier, like with Samoa Joe. So I want to bring on my guest this week for Sitting Ringside, the one and only Sonny Onoo. Welcome, Sonny, to Sitting Ringside. All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we are bringing on to Sitting Ringside the one and only inventor of the selfie, so they say. And that's really says something in this day and age. Mr. Sonny Onoo. Sonny, welcome to Sitting Ringside. Glad to have you.
Thank you so much. My favorite ring announcer.
Thank you. And you're on location in Dallas, Texas, I believe, correct?
Yeah, I'm in little a little bit of town in East Texas, but I flew into Dallas yesterday, and Ernest today, my buddy Ernest, the Cat Miller.
Yes, sir.
He's down in Houston today doing a show with Booker T.
Oh, wow.
And so we're both in Texas.
And you're there are you managing somebody tonight, I believe?
Yeah, Action Jackson. It's little old-timers from this territory. I'm working with a company called Lucha Pride, up-and-coming company that is making, it's getting a pretty good following in a small town on western, or I should say eastern Texas. So, it's a lot of fun. Just like a little family group of professional wrestlers that, matter of fact, Philip Sullivan, I don't know if you remember, not to be confused with Kevin Sullivan, but he was one of the guys who worked at WCW. So I'm out here having a little fun, and my daughter, who happens to live in Dallas, so I get to come and see her once in a while. Although she's not here, she's back in Iowa today for a wedding. But,
Gotta love how that works. Gotta love how that works. Huh?
I know.
It's always fun. It's always fun to get away for a weekend and from real life and play professional wrestling manager. Huh?
Yeah. Well, fortunately for me, I'm not by no means a professional wrestler. I really, have a lot of respect. I know you do as well for what these professional wrestlers actually do. Especially who's with a big company like we were with WCW or WWE, who they're on the road all the time like we were, and not only that it's a very hard on your your private life as well as those professional wrestlers. People don't realize how much pain and ache that they go through day in and day out. So I have a lot of respect for these guys.
Yeah, as do I. I've talked about that before on this podcast, and what they go through is unbelievable. So I want to go back and before we'll talk about WCW and our time there together, but I want to talk about your time before that. You are were very well known, and I see here, if Wikipedia is right, and sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't, that you were once named by the Professional Karate Association the best bantamweight in the entire world. Is that true?
Yeah, from 1975 to 1981, I was number one in the world.
In karate?
Yeah, in kickboxing.
Kickboxing.
PKA was Professional Karate Association. It was a governing body at the time. And for a little guy, I could fight. And I was number one in the world for like 6 years. And it was a lot of fun, just like you do it because you love it. Even if, as a prize fighter, which I can say I was, but not a lot of money. You don't make a lot of money doing it. But I did fight the top guys in the world, so it was a lot of fun back then.
Being the best bantamweight in the world, what does that entail? You said not a lot of money, but in boxing back in the day, if you were the number one contender, they'd build up a big match. It was either on closed circuit or they'd air it on ABC World of Sports, and do interviews, and is there anything like that, or on a smaller scale, or did you get to tour?
It's a little bit on a smaller scale, but we were on CBS Sports, and a lot of times, because this was kind of infant days of kickboxing, when we would be like undercard of the fight, of boxing fights, because we fought on the same ring. So some of the big boxing fights would be like undercard, or semi-main event or stuff like that. Jeff Smith was a light heavyweight champion of the world. Fought a guy named by Kaleem Allah on undercard of a semi-main event for Muhammad Ali versus trying to think, was that Rumble in the Jungle.
Joe Frazier?
Manila. Yeah. Oh no. Was it
George
Joe Frazier?
Foreman?
I think it was a Foreman fight. Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
He was on the card of that. Yeah. So we got a rub from those guys, and it's actually, if you really think about it, we were kind of we were way before time. We're talking about in the 70s. So before the Ultimate Fight Championship, and that we're punching and kicking.
Well, that was my next question to you. If there was a UFC back then or a UFC type promotion, is that something you felt like you could have been a part of and been a player?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. First of all, you got to be to be a fighter. I think it takes certain unique mentality. You know what I mean? You gotta like getting hit and hitting other people and try to overwhelm another individual with your will. Have somebody submit to your will. So I think it takes a different kind of individual. You need to be competitive, but you also need to be. I think you gotta like being a little vicious. If I can say that.
Sure.
And that's and that was Eric fought at middleweight. So but we didn't have a lot of money back then, so we would go to a karate tournament on a weekend, and which is a little bit different than kickboxing, which was a control fighting, and they would stop after you score a point by hitting or punching or kicking your opponent on a targeted area. But kind of like fencing, because they would stop after each clash of the movement and award a point. But you're still hitting and punching,
Correct.
And back in those days, a lot of times we go to tournament and we do bare knuckle. We just tape our hands and tape our foot and just go out there and fight. It was pretty crazy when I look back now. You can only do it when you're young and fearless.
Sure, absolutely. It sounds like a young man's sport, as does UFC. And after a while, I'm sure the body breaks down. So you meet Eric.
Oh, yeah.
So you meet Eric Bischoff, and you become friends. And was this when he was working for AWA, or before he was even a part of the pro wrestling business?
This is before. I'll tell you a story right now that you can probably, and you can ask Eric this.
If he's talking to me this week.
Oh, so you can ask Eric this. So I probably had, because of the event that I'm about to tell you, probably had a lot to do with the fact how Eric Bischoff got into wrestling. So Eric and I had done some business together. We owned, I had a line of tanning salon that I owned, and Eric opened one up in Minneapolis that we were kind of, I was supplying him with tanning beds, and I first met Eric when he was actually managing a karate school. He was kind of salesperson at the karate school. This is after he blew out his knee wrestling in college, and I think he still wanted to, still had that competitive drive, so he got into karate, and that led them to getting a job at the karate school, and that's how I met Eric. And through our friendship, we got into various couple of different businesses, and one of the business was a tanning salon, and I met Lori for the first time. I thought she was like 14-year-old. First thing I said to Eric, and you can tell Eric this, actually I pulled Eric aside and I said, Eric, you're gonna go to jail. She looked 14, but apparently she just barely turned 18 back then. So
well, that's a good thing.
Yeah. So he, but she was, Lori, beautiful lady.
Yes.
You met Lori.
Yes, she is.
And she's, she's tiny and young looking. And imagine when she was like 18 years old.
Well, I can imagine she looked very young.
Yeah. So I was worried about my buddy going to jail, but turned out that she was old enough, and their relationship blossomed, and they got married, and they still are. But you can say, that's quite an accomplishment for somebody like Eric, anyway. But anyway, so what happened? So here's what happened. So I created a game, a physical game called Ninja Star Wars. And that's when Star Wars came out. We called it Ninja Star Wars, kind of get a rub off that. And it was a vest, a Velcro vest, with a Velcro stars that you could throw at each other with a headband. And we created different storylines, getting other guys' flags, or, and actually killed because the ninja was, martial art was kind of big back then, and still is.
Right. So
you could actually tag each other with these ninja stars that are made out of Velcro, and it would stick to the guy's vest or headband. And so I showed this to Eric, and Eric goes, "Oh, we got to get this on TV, Sonny. You got to sell this thing."
It sounds like it was a kind of a version of paintball with and karate.
Yeah.
And martial arts and paintball, but using the stars with the Velcro.
Yeah. Yeah, low tech laser tag, I call it.
Low tech. There you go.
Yeah. So anyway, Eric says, "Well, we got to get this on TV, man. We got to sell this on TV." I said, "Well, how am I going to do that? I don't know how to do that stuff." So Eric got a hold of AWA, because I remember AWA was syndicated show on ESPN.
Yes.
and other stations. And you remember how the business usually worked, that they didn't pay you for the programming, but they would give you commercial time.
Right, PI, I think it was called.
And you could go on and sell you. And you go and sell the commercial time for money. Well, so Eric has a meeting with Vern and work out a deal. So they would advertise we shot a commercial. He would advertise Ninja Star Wars, and we would split the money as we fulfilled the sales. And that was Eric's introduction to professional wrestling. And through that encounter, Eric, they offered him a job as a salesperson and a syndicated salesperson, if I'm right. I think that's how it happened. And, he was traveling and going around and going to Atlanta. And that's how, and Eric, became an announcer at AWA, and moved on to Atlanta, got a job in Atlanta.
I remember that.
The World Championship.
So it's your fault, is what you're saying.
Yes, I will. Yeah. I have no problem. If people who hate Eric Bischoff can blame me. And people who love Eric can blame me as well. So I will take some of that responsibility, but and Spencer, I don't know how David, I don't know how you feel about. I know you get along with Eric, but I never understood why people was. I understand if you had a personal, beef with Eric during their employment time. But I never understood that because of Eric Bischoff, he changed how the wrestler was being paid, along with the guarantee contracts. And because of a successful WCW, there was two companies that they could compete against. And many guys like, everybody from Chris Jericho to, Eddie and all those guys, Eddie Guerrero and Benoit and Perry Saturn, they leveraged that to get a good contract. Along with Hall and Nash and everybody else who went from one company to another during that period of time. And, whether you love or hate them, because of that dynamic of two different companies, people got to leverage themselves and get a good contract.
Yeah, I actually did somebody else's podcast Wednesday afternoon, Wrestling Inc. Raj Giri. I don't know if you're familiar with him. And he asked me about Eric as a boss. And And, so I was just talking about that. And I said, well, look, the guy hired me. The guy paid me. I mean, he wasn't the type of guy after every show that pulled you aside and said, hey, great job. He had so much on his plate, and that just wasn't his style. I don't think it's his style really right now. He's just and he didn't admit that. But I told the story of he went to bat for me on a promise that was made on when I moved up to Atlanta. I had a promise made to me, and they were trying to get out of that promise. What it is not important. But and Eric went to bat for me and got me what was promised to me. And so I can remember it like it was yesterday. And I told the story earlier this week. Eric was walking down the hall. I was outside the announcer's dressing room. And I just said, Eric, thank you very much for going to bat for me. And he looked at me and he said, you're welcome. You deserve it. You work hard. And I said, all right, thanks. I didn't really think anything of it. And Tony Schiavone was standing there. And Tony said, Tony said, that's the best compliment that you're going to get from Eric Bischoff. And I said, what do you mean? He said, he's not the type of guy, as we already discussed, is going to, pat you on the back and say, hey, great announcing, or, great, but what he, considers important and what he considers to be an asset to him is if you work hard. And, I'll never forget that. So, if that may not be, everybody's way of communicating with their staff, but it was Eric's way. And you know what? It didn't bother me. He, up until, and then, Sonny, and we're jumping ahead a little bit. We tend to do that here sometimes on Sitting Ringside, but, how much pressure he was under when things really got big. I'm sure much more than I do, because you had a personal relationship with him, and mine was strictly business. And so anybody that's under that kind of pressure, with 42 people in your ear and trying to, take something that was losing $1 million 2 years ago and is now making $50 million, the pressure of that is, and everybody trying to get their piece of the action. So I can't even imagine how burnt out he was. I mean, I don't know if you have any stories about what he had to go through, but I'm sure it was brutal.
Yeah, I mean, there was no quiet moment for him. You know what I mean? I mean, it was like everybody was trying to get it. Everybody was. I think to a certain degree, I think when things got really good, when we were beating WWE and when things was really humming at WCW, I think some of the smart guys were saying, okay, I need to get my contract so I have longevity in this company, or get I mean, they, as you know, all the great wrestlers are great workers. I'm saying that in a complimentary way, that and that they were positioning themselves with Eric or trying to get something from Eric. So that was pretty crazy. I mean, we were and he was doing business, not 8 hours a day. I mean, as every guys were looking for Eric to find out which bar he's going to be at so they could go talk to him. I mean, more business was done outside of probably that building than we would never know how much business was done at many other establishments.
I think that's where most of the important business was done. But
I think you have,
and that's cool when you're not starting at 6 a.m. with a phone call saying, trying to find out what the ratings were or seeing, how the house did the night before and all that. So, it's cool if you could sleep till 10 and roll into the building at noon. And that's cool, to be doing business at an establishment at 11 o'clock. But when you're burning the candle on both ends, I tell everybody, and look, I don't really know Eric all that well. Recently, a couple of years ago, I had it was just me and him in a bar after a Hulk Hogan and Friends show in Toronto, and it's really the first time he invited me to sit down. And we sat down, and he actually bought me a few drinks, and we had about an hour and a half, 2 hour conversation. That's probably the first time I had an in-depth conversation with Eric about life or anything, because he was going a million miles an hour, and then he's in WWE, and I'm out of the business, and so So that was really the first time I ever really got a chance to sit down and talk to him. But he never had a problem. I never had a problem with him. Like I said, he wasn't a warm and fuzzy guy, so to speak. But it doesn't sound like Vince McMahon is either. So maybe warm and fuzzy is not going to win you any points in business.
Similar. Right. No, like I know Eric at a different level, for many years, and so it's a little different. And I never use my relationship with Eric to hurt somebody or get somebody in trouble or I felt that part of my job was watching his back. When I saw something that I thought it was, and mainly, some of these, like those Mexican guys were working in Tijuana while they were on the WCW contract, that kind of thing, And I go, Eric, Rey Mysterio is booked on a show in Tijuana.
Well, the important, and hey, I'm shooting totally from the hip. Some people would call that being a stooge, and I call it being a loyal person who, there was a reason you were there, and we'll get into that. Next is what I wanted to get into, why you came in and what you're doing. But part of the, when you're running a multi-million-dollar company, there's not a lot of people that you could trust. There's a lot of people gunning for your job. There's a lot of people gunning for more money. Everybody has their own agenda. So, whether you're Vince McMahon or whether you're Roger Goodell or whether you're Eric Bischoff or whoever it is, you have a certain amount of people that you for whatever reason that you trust to look out for you. And I'm assuming that was, one of the reasons why you were, loyal to Eric because of your history that, and like I said, some would call that a stooge. I call it being a loyal friend. And sometimes in the wrestling business, they go hand in hand.
Yeah. Well, it was one of those things where I think some of the talent was, we were trying to, there were requests came from Japan to book some of our luchadors for some of the events or, some of the high profile luchadors from Japan and they were concerned. They the one who called me and said, hey, what kind of, is he on the, are these wrestlers on the employment contract? Because that was a part of our talent exchange program.
Right.
We cut with New Japan. New Japan was paying us, towards the end, they were paying us almost $1 million a year. And if I tell you, we have agreements that, hey, you have access to my talent, and all of a sudden you realize, wait a minute, you're telling me you have access to your talent, but why is he working up this under the independent show?
Right.
So that was part of the that's how that conversation came about. The inquiry came because we didn't want to jeopardize that $1 million contract we have.
Absolutely. So mid 1990s, Eric got the job to be the executive producer of WCW. How long after that were you brought in, and what was your original the original thing you were brought in to do?
So Eric calls me after he moved to Atlanta, and so Eric and I, like I said, we were pretty close, and our martial art background, and we always talked about wanting to do a karate show, and put them on Turner Television, and one of the things we wanted to do is involve the Japanese fighters and American fighters and so on. So we had an idea for the show. So one day I get a phone call, and he knows I'm in car business. So Eric calls me up and says, hey, I just bought myself my black Corvette. I said, really? He said, yeah, I'm doing like 110 on the perimeter around what
285.
285, yeah. Going home. And he says, I said, well, and I could tell this is like 8:30, 9 o'clock that, he probably had a couple. So I said, and he had a couple. I mean, you just know that. So anyway, so I said, hey, first thing I want you to do is slow down. And why don't you call me when you get home? He said, no, I got to talk to you about He says, I got to go to Japan. And he says, how's your Japanese? And I said, yeah, I mean, I was born there. I can still speak. And he says, well, all right, we're going to go next Thursday. And we're going to talk about our karate stuff. And you'd be fun. You just go with it. You could
It'd be
hear
fun,
it, right?
yeah.
So, yeah. So I go, okay, all right, that's great. All right, just let me know. I'll be ready. Because I had my own business. So he knew that I could leave, So,
right.
So Tuesday, I get no phone call. Wednesday, I get no phone call. So Wednesday by noon, I said, well, if I'm leaving tomorrow, I better call him. So I called Eric at his office, and I said, hey, Eric. He goes, hey, Sonny, how you doing? Like, I don't get any response about our conversation we had. So I go, and you can tell he was busy, and, he was trying to get me off the phone,
Yeah.
And I said, oh, by the way, Eric, are we still going to Japan tomorrow? He goes, I swear to you, this is what he said. He goes, oh, shit. You were the guy I was talking to. I'll call you right back. This was Eric. So he calls me back and says, okay, you got to get here. Our flight leaves at 10:30. You gotta be in Atlanta before 10:30 tomorrow. Oh, okay. So anyway, I managed to get to Atlanta, get on a plane, and we talk about this karate show that we're gonna be. He's going there for New Japan, and mind you, I have no idea what professional wrestling business is. Closest I got went to a couple of events with AWA, and so we get there. And they pick us up. We go to Kyo Plaza in Shinjuku and hotel, and we have a meeting. And I know nothing about the meeting. So we have a breakfast, and Eric goes, okay, just don't say nothing. When I cue you, when I start talking about karate, if opportunity arises, we can talk to them about it. I said, okay, fine, all right. So we
follow my lead.
Right.
Kind of like follow my lead.
So we'll go to the TB Asahi building where New Japan's office was, and we're sitting across, and how I remember was they were like sitting up higher than I was. You know what I mean? Like I'm in a court, and you have a Masa Saito, who, and if you remember Masa, you don't know what your eyeballs looking at you.
Yeah.
And scariest, 1964 Olympian. He'd been arrested and being in jail in Wisconsin while he was in the United States.
Yeah. Threw a boulder through the window of McDonald's.
Right. Well, actually, he didn't.
Because they wouldn't give him a Big Mac.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, and then you got Sakaguchi, who is the heavyweight judo champion. These guys are like 6'4". I mean, Sakaguchi is like 6 foot something, and weighs way over 300 pounds. Then you got Choshu, who's a Korean descent, but he's like Masa, just huge. So they got these huge, meanest looking Japanese wrestlers that I have never met, looking at us like they want to kill us. I mean, they're not cracking smile, nothing. And there was a guy named by Taiga Hattori who's still with New Japan Pro Wrestling, who lived in New York, who's a Japanese guy, spoke real good English. He looks at me and goes, Sonny, you translate. So I go, well, yeah, put me on the spot, right? So, okay. So now mind you, I know nothing about wrestling. So Eric starts his speech, and I'm translating as I hear them. And Eric apologizing to these people that look like they want to kill us and throw us in, Tokyo Bay, says, well, first I want to apologize to you for prior management. I think it was Bill Watts, who went in agreement with New Japan Pro Wrestling and upward of like $500,000 for talent exchange program, but never sent one talent to Japan. So I'm going like, I'm hearing it, translating in Japanese, and I'm realizing as I'm saying in Japanese, I'm going like, well, what the F? No wonder they want to kill us. We stole like $500,000 from these people.
the light bulb went off in your head as you're trying to translate for these big guys.
Now I'm starting to like sweat like a bullet because I think these people are gonna kill us. So and then Eric went on to try to repair their damage by saying, listen, give me a chance. I'm the new management. Let me make up for the money you paid us, and we're expending our talent as we go, and please give us another opportunity. Well, then Masa Saito says, here's the problem. I call your office. I get a runaround. There was no one person that I could contact. Who is going to be my contact person if I give you this opportunity? And Eric, without skipping a beat, he goes, oh, that'll be Sonny. I look at Eric like, I don't work for you. What are you talking about? So, although that's what I said.
As you're translating and crapping your pants, you just got a job
right.
somewhere in that whole mix.
Yeah. So as meeting gets done, we're gonna go eat. I look at Eric. I said, what are you talking about? I'm gonna be the contact person. And he goes, oh, don't worry about it. He says, I'll pay you. And I started out literally just answering phone and translating their request to Eric. And they liked it because they knew the relationship between Eric and I, so they knew they could get that request directly into Eric. And I could give them a direct answer back from Eric. So, that's how that relationship started. And
it actually was a good idea, just in hindsight. But if you weren't there to pitch a karate show, God knows what would have happened.
No, well, if I wasn't there, I don't know what would have happened. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Right.
Because I could speak Japanese and I could talk to Masa, and I could take their request and I could say, Eric, hey, these guys really need this guy, and through that relationship, WCW got bigger and better, and Eric wanted to hire more talent, especially when Nitro came along. We cut another deal with New Japan, which we took their Gaijin talent, in other words, their American talent, and like Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit, and then we put them on WCW contract. So that frees New Japan a contractual agreement, and boys liked it better because they knew they were going to get guaranteed money. They're going to be working for WCW, and they're going to be, farmed out to New Japan, where they already had great fan base. So it was a win-win deal for everybody.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but before that, they would go, the Eddie and Chris and Dean and those guys would go do a tour of Japan, maybe 4 or 5 times a year, 6 times a year, and they'd get paid for when they worked, and then they'd come home and they'd have to take indie dates or ECW or something like that.
Correct.
So this was giving them an opportunity to have a full-time salary and still be able to go to Japan, for their agreement. So it was a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, so we calculated
just
what
like
they
you
were
said,
making from Japan, and give them a bump on their bonus because they would be working for us or WCW. So it was a win-win deal for everybody. It really was. The biggest angle ever in New Japan history, Mr. Baisho was their vice president of operations. He passed away a couple of days ago. But he, biggest angle in history of certainly WCW about New Japan was the NWO Japan. We sold something like $5 million worth of T-shirts in Japan.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, wasn't the NWO based on an angle that they did in New Japan?
Well, they were doing interpromotional stuff with All Japan and versus New Japan, which was All Japan was Mr. Baba's company. New Japan was Antonio Inoki's company. So they have done some interpromotional stuff. And I remember I distinctly remember having a flight back from Japan, talking to Eric, goes, it's too bad that you guys can't do, and this is my question to Eric, was that you guys could never do, WWF versus WCW. What a big money show that would be. I remember asking Eric that, that's never going to happen. And that was Eric's answer. Well, once again, that might have been a seed or idea that Eric got from Japan and started perception of invasion from New York.
Yeah, I think it's the greatest angle ever in the Monday Night Wars, quite frankly.
Oh,
I
think it's the greatest angle ever in history of wrestling.
People ask me, what are the highlights of Monday Nitro, and one of the top two that I have is Scott Hall walking down the stairs and steps through the audience in Macon, Georgia, and we knew he was coming. Everybody, the boys knew he was coming. Most, if you read the kayfabe sheets, you knew he was coming. It wasn't a secret, but the big question was that nobody knew is, what's he going to be? He can't be Razor Ramon. What are you going to call him? How are they going to explain it? And when he got in and did the promo about, intimating that he was being sent by Vince McMahon, to retaliate to the Scheme Gene videos and all that kind of stuff, a light bulb went off in my head like, this is brilliant. And, that was what the start of probably the greatest angle infection in the history of the business. I read something in doing a little research for this interview that I wasn't aware of, and I understand that under a pseudonym that you were one of the members responsible for Ric Flair being reinstated as a wrestler after he lost a retirement match to Hulk Hogan. Is that a true story?
Yes, it is. And we played the various different countrymen. Of course, I was Mr. Ishikawa from Japan.
I remember that.
Yeah, and you remember Christine Johnson?
Right.
She spoke a little French, so she was a French person. And I think Dieter was a German guy.
Right.
Yeah. So, there was a segment actually in the show where we reinstated Ric Flair. That was, because I remember that was the first time I was on in front of the camera.
And so if it wasn't for Sonny Onoo, a.k.a. Mr. Ishikawa, Ric Flair's career might have had a whole different direction after 1995.
That's right.
I remember that, and if somebody would have bet me, if somebody would have put $1 million on the table and said who was the Japanese quote-unquote representative who voted to reinstate Flair, I wouldn't have known in a million years. So that's it's amazing how Wikipedia knows. But just a little side comment that as Sonny Onoo, under your pseudonym, is responsible for saving the career of Ric Flair. So at some point, you became a manager. Tell me about how that was. You went from just being the conduit between New Japan and Eric to being a manager. How did that go? And what were your thoughts for somebody who's never in the wrestling business?
How did that came about was because I done a couple of martial art movies. So I done some. By no means I am versed in acting or in theater. It's just that because I was a karate guy and I could kick and punch. So I done some couple of movies, and Eric knew that, and we had a pretty good beer and laughed about it watching my movie. Eric,
that would be fearless. That would be Fearless Tiger, correct?
Yes, it is. And unfortunately, that's a legit.
Do you remember your character's name?
Yes, his name was Ping. He was
Ping.
Peng, P-E-N-G. He was a Hong Kong police officer. Yeah.
Any relation to Ming?
No. Ming is much more scarier than Ping.
Without a doubt.
So what happened was, so as I was working this relationship between WCW and New Japan, one of the things that remember Nakanishi Moby that came over.
Oh, absolutely.
And do you remember, of course, Yuji Nagata? So
yeah,
part of their
my favorite story about Nakanishi, and I hope I don't get him in trouble, but this is 20 years ago. Is he could, and I can't remember how I would have known this, but I just somehow I wandered in, but he couldn't understand a word of English until he got to the strip club.
Right.
And then he knew a ton of English. He could have a conversation with you.
Yeah, he was absolutely fluent talking to strippers.
And I wasn't at the strip club, but I was told that by several other individuals.
They knew him at the Gold Club and Taj and Jesus.
But it would be great. It would be great because we'd be on the road and the agent would try to lay out the match and they'd have to come get you and do the translation, and he'd act like and then you're in a strip club with the same agent having a drink, and a lot of times it's not even about going to a strip club. After the matches in particular town on a Wednesday night, you want to go have a beer or something just to wind down. And the only place that sells alcohol at that time of night would be a strip club. So a lot of times we just go there to get a drink. But Nakanishi, he could have a conversation with a young lady, and that same agent would look at me and say, "I can swear that guy didn't know a word of English about 3 hours ago in the arena." Yeah.
Yeah.
So like you said, everybody's a worker.
Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely a true story. But so what happened was, so I knew that's part of their system, right? To season their boys coming to the United States. And one of the things they wanted out of that deal was for them to get over in the United States. Because once the Japanese boys got over in the United States, become semi-main event guys, well, guess what? That raised, when they went back to Japan, they were just like any Japanese baseball player that come over here and become successful. Or they're like gods when they go home.
Right.
So.
And that's the way they did it going back to the 70s and probably even beyond. I can remember when Tenryu, who was the legendary one of the top stars in Japan back in the 80s, I can remember when he was a preliminary guy in Championship Wrestling from Florida. And they'd go to Georgia and just getting their feet wet, and eventually they'd get a push somewhere, and then they'd go back as a like you said, as a hero to Japan.
Right.
So that was an opportunity for New Japan to play off WCW to continue that formula. What you're saying?
So if you remember back in 1995, we did WCW versus New Japan World War III. I wasn't a big fan of the name, but we did a World War III pay-per-view, and at that point, so somebody came up with this idea.
That was in Japan, correct?
No, that was in the United States.
What was the one that you did in Japan? Because I was supposed to go to that, and then it got changed at the last minute.
I think that was. You're talking about one that we did in North Korea? I think you were supposed to go to North Korea too.
No, not North Korea. I remember Eric coming up to me and saying, "You ever been to Japan?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Well, you're going now." I think it got changed from a live pay-per-view to a tape pay-per-view. Maybe it was when Flair dropped the title.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I do vaguely remember that. But
so is that your fault that I didn't get to go to Japan? Should I blame you?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I would love to have you there. I would have shown you much better strip club in Japan.
I'm not really. Honestly, I'm really not a strip club guy. But I love the Nakanishi story though.
But no, it's a little different over there. But anyway.
So you had the best of 7 World Cup. I know we digress. Sometimes we do that. That's sort of what makes this a unique show.
So we had a New Japan versus WCW, and they were bringing in their big stars like Kensuke Sasaki, Masa Saito, Jushin Thunder Liger, Kanemoto, and these were the guys they wanted. Some of the names already famous here, but like Kensuke and Kanemoto, they want to elevate him, right? So we're gonna have this 5-on-5 match. With WCW stars, and that was part of that pay-per-view. And
you were the manager for the
I was a manager
Japanese
because that's how I got on as Sonny Onoo, the manager, because none of them spoke English, obviously. So I had to represent these guys, and Eric says, "Hey, you're going to be managing these guys," and I said, "Okay," so. Came up as Sonny Onoo character, and started taking picture of myself as we made an entrance to the arena with a little Fuji disposable 35mm camera, that's when I started taking my selfies.
That's amazing. Of all people in all businesses, that you were one of the people, if not the person who invented the selfie. Unbelievable.
Well,
Uh,
I'm sure other people has taken camera and taken picture of themselves and stuff like that, but I was the one who was doing on, you know, every television shows. I mean, we were on, a guy just asked me the other day, you've been on Nitro more than Hulk Hogan. And I said, yes, I have. Because, we were on the card, but we were, I managed so many guys. So, it's not like I was on television when Ultimate Dragon was on. I was on a television show. Ultimate Dragon was on when, and later on it was Psychosis and La Parka. Ended up managing all those guys. So, I was on television show on Nitro, certainly, and Saturday Night, Thunder. I was on the show a lot during that period of time. And I don't, you remember this, David, because I remember part of the deal I cut once I became on-camera talent. Eric pulls me aside and says, hey, okay, we're gonna have to redo your contract because you're gonna be on front of the camera. So go talk to Nick Lambros. He was our business attorney.
Yeah, he was the guy. He was the guy that Eric saved me from in the story that I told at the beginning of the show.
Oh,
Since
really?
you bring it up, the name, yes, he's the one who overruled Nick, who didn't want to fulfill the promise I was given.
Okay.
So
Nick, yeah, he was a business.
I hope you had better experiences with him than I did.
No, I did, because Eric says to me, I can't. You're my friend, so I can't negotiate your deal. Go negotiate your best deal you can with Nick Lambros, and I'll sign off on it. So I said, oh, great. So, I go in and talk to Nick, and Nick says, okay, here's your base pay, which I was a consultant at doing this Japanese business behind the camera. And he says, well, now that you're on the front of the camera, I'm going to give you 25 days at X number of dollars per day. I said, great. Okay. I said, and knowing that I was managing all these guys, I said, what happens if I go more than 25 days? He says, well, we'll put in a paper play clause in your contract. So every day that we ask you to be on television, we'll pay you per day.
Right.
And I said, really? And it doesn't matter if I'm on television, right? If I get called to be on television, I get paid, right? Yeah, if we ask you to arena, that means you get paid. I said, really? And I'm thinking, well, this is 365 freaking days a year. So I said, would that work for you? I said, yeah, absolutely, that works for me. And then, Eric signed off on it. And right after that I agreed to do that deal, I walked over to Nate Yolster and Craig Lathers, and I said, book me on every show that you get. I will come and sweep the floor if you want me to, but book me on every show. Remember, if you remember this, I know you got to remember, because I would come to you every 3 months with a date that I was at and have you sign off on it.
Yeah, because I did the sign-in sheets back in the day.
Right.
Yeah.
And I would say, hey, here's my date that I worked, last 3 months. Sign off on it. And you would sign off on it, and I would take it over to accounting and get paid.
I never realized that was the reason why that was important, because I just signed off on I just did my looked to see that you had signed the sign-in sheet and signed it, and
right.
I actually had forgotten that, but that's a true story. So
yeah.
So you're living the dream. You're obviously making pretty decent money. You got hooked up with Ultimo Dragon, which I think a lot of people probably remember you best with.
Yeah.
Would that be accurate?
Absolutely. Yeah. Ultimo Dragon, Yuji Nagata, and of course, Yuji was only there for, a couple of years on television. And then, towards the end, I was with, I was with Ernest, after Ernest, after Ultimo Dragon got hurt and surgery and he was gone. And then, Ernest, because of our background in martial art together, I hooked up with him. And right at the beginning of 2000.
Yeah, and that was a pretty entertaining combination, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
because Ernest was, Ernest didn't need a mouthpiece, and obviously with everybody else, I was a mouthpiece, and Ernest and I was doing the thing shticks like a Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker thing,
Right.
I was kind of his martial arts sidekick, and if you remember a lot of Ernest, and he's entertaining as hell. We still talk to each other probably once every other day. And he's happened to be in Houston today, working with Booker T, as I said earlier. We're real good friends, and Ernest didn't win a lot of matches, and I would play that, I would play his Asian sidekick who kind of screwed him up trying to help him, and so it was a pretty good deal, because Ernest never lost heat because he lost the match, because of that little Asian fella screwed up and lost the match for him. But yeah, and speaking of Ultimate Dragon, he's amazing. He's still, I think he's in business 30 years now. I think he just had a big anniversary. And, he still has his business and, wrestling business in Mexico. He's still big in Japan. And he still works Europe and still does some independent show in the United States.
So he wrestles still, Ultimate Dragon.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Does he still have his 42 titles?
No, he had 10.
10
altogether, 10 at the same time. And what those big wrestling historians and marks will tell you, that he's the only person that ever held 10 belts, including WWF and WCW cruiserweight belt at the same time. No other human being, as far as I know, has ever accomplished that feat. Although when we were at WCW, we never advertised his WWF belt. We always, but he actually held those belts at the same time when we used to, and he hated it. He hated carrying all those belts to the arena.
Yeah, I heard. There's a lot of stories about a lot of the talent that you'd think would be so proud that they have all these titles, that can't stand having to tote them all around, and that's when you that's when you realize that it's just it's sort of open your eyes as to what the real business is. It's the check that comes every 2 weeks, not the belts that you have to carry through security and all that stuff. Because as you know, opposed to what they used to say back in the 70s and early 80s, having those 10 titles didn't change how much the check that Ultimo Dragon was getting every 2 weeks.
No.
If he had none of those titles he had to tote around, he'd still be getting the same check. So.
Absolutely.
So I got a question for you. I know it. Once the guys got to know you, you were one of the boys, and they accepted you. Was there a time though when you first came in, when maybe some of the guys might not have been a little bit skeptical because you're, they say Paul Heyman guy and all that, because you were Eric Bischoff guy who hadn't been in the business?
Yeah. No, I never had any incidents, really. I mean, I really didn't, and I really didn't, and what I had was, I was amazed how kind most guys were. I mean, I have like Road Warrior Hawk actually drive to Mason City, Iowa, which is 2 hours south of Minneapolis. Hawk lived up in Minneapolis. Actually show up to my kid's show and tell with his whole gimmick on.
Who is this? Who is this again?
Hawk, Road Warrior Hawk.
Oh, Road Warrior Hawk. God bless him.
Yeah, and Macho Man did the same thing. We used to stay at the Marriott by the airport in Minneapolis, and his flight wasn't till later that evening. So he said, well, let's go down and to Mason City, and because I had bought the Macho Man's bike, if you remember.
Right.
So he showed up at the Harley Davidson, took a picture with his bike, and my kid happened to be having a show and tell. So my girls, You know, they're 25 and 30 now, but you know, they were still in you know, I can't remember. They were maybe third and fifth grader. Macho Man Randy Savage showed up in Mason City, Iowa for show and tell for my girls.
That's quite the show and tell.
Yeah, I mean, but what I'm saying is just amazing how kind. I mean, I can't really, literally can't think of any negative experience I had with the boys. I mean, you know, maybe I have a selective memory, but I really can't think of one thing, you know, except maybe a couple of times that I realized how tough Meng was. That you know, I seen him like getting in little scuffles. It's usually one-sided, but ended up in that you know, preventing him from eating somebody and killing them. But I used to tell people,
seriously.
I used to tell people, I said, why would you want to mess with that guy? His grandfather is the king of Tonga, and I believe when he was a chief, they were cannibals. They were still eating people.
I did not know that.
Oh yes. So you don't want to be messing with those people.
That puts a whole, you know, I already knew he was the toughest guy in the world, but that puts a whole new slant on my friend Ming Haku.
Yes.
Tonga Fafita. Well, and he's the nicest guy in the world too.
Oh, kindness. Loved to hold your babies. You know, when my kid would come to Disney.
Yeah.
You know, he just loved it. I mean, he was just so soft. Very afraid of their wives.
Yeah, 100%.
Remember, what was his name? His partner,
Barbarian.
And he only thing I think Barbarian feared was his mama side. Oh, please don't tell mama.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They could beat the heck out of a whole bar, probably the two of them, if they wanted to. But God forbid they got on the wrong side of their wives.
That's the only time you see a legit fear in their eyes.
You're right, Barbarian especially, but he sold it a lot more. But it's funny because it just goes to show you, no matter how tough that you are, you got to respect your family, or, you know, or else you're not a, you know, what they say, happy wife, happy life.
Look at you. You were just in Greece, right?
Greece. Yeah. Sonny, I know you're in pretty good shape still. I know that you still compete in karate. We'll talk about that a little bit. But I'm telling you, if you're ever in Santorini, Greece, I said this last week, you need to spend about 6 months on the Stairmaster, man. The thing is nothing but steep steps.
Yeah.
If I told, I don't know if you've been there or not, but if I told you that I blew up worse than I would have ever blown up in my entire life, I literally thought I was dying. My wife hired somebody to take pictures on our 25th anniversary, and you know, we got all dressed up and went to all these different things. And I looked at her towards the end, and I said, "Be sure to show these at my funeral." The last pictures I ever took, because I couldn't catch my breath at that point. I was thinking I'm having a heart attack. If I had a stent put in about 4 years ago, and if there's ever a question of if it's still working, that was just go to Santorini, and if you get home, it means if you get home breathing upright, it means that the stent is working well. But I can't get over it. I can't get over it.
What I wanted to tell you was, look at you. You know, happily married all these years. You know, that's a rare in our business, as you know, Ric Flair.
I have no idea how she put up with me.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, you know, I have. You met my wife. You know, she's
beautiful. Your wife is beautiful.
She's tall, beautiful, wonderful mother. You know, I mean, I was. I was definitely, you know, got lucky. And I mean, that's really.
We both outkicked our coverage for sure. Not even close.
Yes, absolutely.
And we managed to keep them around. So,
yeah, that's the amazing part.
So, tell me, thank you for the compliment. And it was. I don't know why she keeps me around, but she does, and I'm grateful.
Yeah.
So Eric leaves, and things are kind of rocky, and they hire Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara. And I know that nobody's surprised that was sort of the downfall of Sonny Onoo and WCW.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how that came about, and maybe when you realized that something was changing.
Well, it was kind of simple, because I think what happened was Ernest he was like injured, so we were, in a sense, basically, I was managing a couple of I think La Parca and Psychosis. Um, so we were, when Eric got ousted somewhere around September of '99. And I say that ousted because you probably know more than or you probably know just as much as I do how that came about. But anyway, what happened was the Bill Bush.
Quite frankly, I think at that point it was a relief just to be able to go home.
Yeah, probably was. But Bill Bush, who's our accountant, who's one of the vice presidents, kind of got the rest of the vice president together and created this coup to oust Eric. And here's a man who have no business outside of these four walls, writing down numbers. All the times that he could do Eric's job. So, one of the first thing he did, talking to other, guys, to bring, Vince Russo and Ed to WCW to kickstart the company and storyline. And he had told 2 days after he was there, I laughed because it's just such a we worked for a company that was part of Time Warner, which is one of the big companies in certainly in media. So he comes in and says, on WCW, I think it was a radio or a podcast or one of those things, on an official produced by WCW Time Warner. He says something to the effect, I don't have the direct line quote, but it's something to the line where he says, I'm from America. I'm only going to have American on my TV, no Mexican and no Japanese. And,
I remember.
And proceeded to, fire everybody. And I may lose you because my phone is dying, but proceeded to fire all of us, and I said thank you very much, and J.J. Dillon called me, and said that Sonny, we're going to release you. And I said, okay. JJ said, we can pay you 30 days or 90 days in advance, or we can, pay you weekly. But if we pay you a 90-day in advance, you got to sign this piece of paper that says you're not going to sue us. And I laughed real hard, and I said, no, just take my paycheck for now, for the next 90 days. And, proceeded to sue WCW. And they settled about a year and a half later. And allowed me to send my kid to many prestige colleges, and so it kind of worked out pretty good for me.
And quite frankly, do you think that if he wouldn't have ever said that on the radio type show that he did, that that would have been something that even would have gone through your mind?
Yeah, I mean, really, honestly, I wouldn't have sued. I mean, they can terminate anybody for any reason, right? I mean, really, any reason as long as you're not breaking the law. And
Right.
They have, he happened to proceeded to break the law by saying what he said and carry out, his view of what WCW was going to be, and that made it pretty easy for me. And not only that, as you know, one of the biggest fears that they had, and I'm going to go into a little bit, is that obviously my suit was based on what he said, so it was you can't fire people because of your national origin, and that was. But one of the biggest fear they had was the head of EEOC, which is Equal Employment governing body, was a Japanese American guy, happened I knew, and he was all over me of which is part of the lawsuit that we were all deemed as independent contractors. Those, and you can probably play that as a wrestler, maybe, but what I was doing, working in office, I had a Time Warner a credit card, American Express. I had their, I had a computer, the issue by, so I was always being treated as the employee, but paid as independent contractor. But that issue that was a really scary issue for Time Warner.
That probably was the best way to go, because I was an employee and being paid as an employee, and I could tell you that things went much better when you were a independent contractor, being paid as an independent contractor, but being treated like an employee. Because employees was a totally different pay set. But that's neither here nor there.
Right.
But you got the better half of the deal. I'll just say that. Hey, there was some. I don't want to mention anybody by name. There was some wrestlers that were part of that lawsuit that I don't consider worthy of suing. I don't think that. I don't think there was. Was that something that you organized, or was that just?
No. I just want to make it very clear here to anybody who cared to know, is that my lawsuit was just my lawsuit. There was other people that sued. They were all individual lawsuits. There was other discrimination lawsuits, but they were all individual. It was not a class action. We were being represented. Eventually, we were being represented by the same attorney, but they were all separate lawsuits.
Yeah, because that's not how I know Wikipedia. You can't live for it, but just an FYI to whoever. I don't even know how you go on and change it. That's not what it says. So I just wanted to make that. I wanted to make that clear, because I know there was some people that were part of an individual lawsuit, and that they weren't part of your lawsuit, and so it's kind of on the internet. It's kind of sketchy. So I just wanted to make that clear.
Yeah.
So Sonny, what are you doing? What are you doing now? Living the dream.
I am living a dream. One of the luckiest things, I think, I got into business, and I already had the business. So I had my health club and karate school, and I had my car dealership. So I was already doing something and running my own business. So when the wrestling thing ended, I still do, because I got to do a lot of international business experience. So I worked as a consultant for various companies to do business in Japan, and because of my relationship with you and people like Michael Weber, who runs the Fight TV, as you know,
Right.
The COO. So I work with him as a consultant. So I bring content from Japan. We just brought All Japan and Russell One, who now president of Russell One now is Kaz Hayashi, if you remember him.
Oh, yes. He doesn't look like he's aged one day. Makes me nauseous.
So yeah. So he's so we're bringing that show through Fight TV on that platform, and I'm going to be doing color commentary on the show as he gets developed into North American market. So
Wow.
I do stuff like that. So
We're breaking news here.
yeah. So and then I do some independent show here and there, and do those WrestleCons and Comic Cons and that kind of thing, and get to go see my fans and stuff. And what's nice about Fight TV is I get to go to Japan and eat some good food and meet my old friends from Japan. So it's I am living a dream. I mean, without a doubt. Beautiful wife, wonderful family. I really have no regrets.
Well, you're always a class act and a great guy to hang out with, and that we got to hang out a little bit at WrestleCade last year, and had one of the highlights of being there for me was to get to hang out with you and got to talk to Eric a little bit. And real quickly, I know that you just saw Perry Saturn, and I know that Perry's been in bad shape. Do you have an update? How's Perry doing? Hopefully better.
Yeah, Perry's been spiraled down. He was really sitting the bottom. I can go on another 45-minute story about how Perry got to Albuquerque, Minnesota, but we did a Comic-Con convention and we signed autograph. He had a incident on Friday. He couldn't make it, but he showed up on Saturday. He's okay. He's getting better. For those of you who helped him, thank you very much. And he's also doing he finally got his disability okay. So, he's been fighting that for like 3 years. So I think he's going to be in a better place. I think he's going to be okay. He's going to get some medical help. But he is poor guy. I love him to death. But he's physically in pretty bad shape.
Oh, that's a shame to hear. Like you said, he's one of the good guys. If you speak to him or communicate with him, please send my best. He's a good guy.
Absolutely, I will. Yeah.
He's a good guy. All right. Well, and do you have anything that you have a Twitter or Facebook or anything that you want to promote and how people can follow you?
Yeah, I'm in Facebook under Sonny Onoo. So I'm doing some stuff with Ultimo Dragon. I think we're going to be doing some shows, a couple of big shows. He has Dragon Mania and Mexico. I think through Fight TV, I think we're going to try to do one on the East Coast, try to do one on the West Coast, and do one in Japan and one in Mexico. So, I'm helping to put that together. A guy named by Gary Jackson, who's a producer actually, produced a couple a television show out of LA. Is Ultimo Dragon's a business manager, and he developed some chibis, which is a character of me doing selfies, and we got Muppet that is coming out. We're going to be turned into a Muppet, so he's working on that television show. There's a lot of good stuff going on, and there's another television show. Actually, I'm meeting on Monday. A professional wrestling show is being developed out of Nashville, Tennessee. So I have a meeting about that on Monday. I'm flying to Tennessee for that. So, there's a lot of good things, but everything I do, I and I've been fortunate enough that nothing I have ever done in my life, except working for UPS for 1 year on a dare, I have really done everything that I like to do. My hobby or something I enjoy has become my vocation. So, and like I said earlier, I'm truly blessed. I know you feel that way about when you go on the ring.
Absolutely.
And when you make those announcements, you don't feel like, God, I'm working. God, I got to go to work. It's not one of those. We literally get paid for something we love to do. So we're blessed.
All right. Well, keep me in mind on some of these projects.
Absolutely.
I have a little bit of extra time, but I have one. I asked for some questions from Twitter, so I have one. I just wanted to ask you before I let you go. It's from OK Fabe at OK Fabe.
Okay.
That person wanted to know, he or she, the favorite person you managed in WCW New Japan and your favorite angle you were ever a part of.
One of the funnest one I can say is, Ultimo Dragon was a lot of fun because he's so international. And of course, as far as American guys or, North American guys, that would be a Cat because but once again, they're literally, they're both a real close friend of mine. So, like I said, it was never work. It was just so much fun doing stuff with them. And one of the funnest angle we had is I actually got in the ring where there was Kaz Hayashi, Perry Saturn versus Sonny Onoo. It was actually a pay-per-view, I think. And Kaz, where Perry did his finish, Death Valley Driver on me in the middle of the ring. And my wife literally thought that, my head went through the mat and that I was dead. So
if he wanted to, he could have done it, but
oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's one of the things, that it's amazing, right? What a wrestler does. They can be fighting each other, hating each other, but when they get in the ring, they give each other their bodies, and they're so professional. It's amazing.
Absolutely. And again, Perry was one of the good guys, so we wish him the best. One last question. Have you had any conversation with Vince Russo since all that happened back in early 2000s?
No, actually, he has never approached me, and I mean, look, the statement I made or all the affidavit that he said what he said, company did what they did. It's kind of hard, right? Kind of hard to argue that.
Sure, yeah. I would assume in hindsight he probably regretted saying that for more than one reason.
Absolutely. I'm sure he will not be going to Japan or Mexico anytime soon.
Yeah, and it was unfortunate, and I hope down the road to have Ed Ferrara as a guest. We've been in touch, and when I do, I'll ask him his memory of it, and maybe we could get you and Ed on the phone. We could have a little meeting.
Absolutely, Ed was a pretty nice guy. I never really got to know him or anything, but I was gone. But he.
Vince is a character, and everybody knows that. But Ed is a friend. So maybe we could get you guys on the phone, and we could finally hash it out and put it in to anything that happened. And if it doesn't happen, that's okay too. Hey, Sonny, I really, really appreciate it. I know you're in a different town, and your cell phone's dying. So God bless you, my friend. Thank you for taking the time to come on, answer the questions honestly, as you always do. And like I said, hopefully we could maybe work together, do something, see each other down the road. Be happy to buy you a cocktail on me.
Absolutely. You're also a nice guy. But let me put this bug in you. If Vince wants to make some money, I'd be willing to have a shoot fight with him anytime, anywhere he would like to do. If you want to promote that, I have no problem.
That's okay. That's a hell of a hook there.
There you go.
There we go. Was it winner take all?
Absolutely.
I don't know about that. Maybe if he got a guarantee to get his butt kicked. Because you just recently won another award for karate, correct? Kickboxing?
Yeah. After 23 years, well, no, I should say it's probably about 17 years in absence from active competition. I competed in the Battle of Atlanta World Championship on senior division, of course, that's 60 and over division, and I beat the two-time defending champion and won another world championship.
That's amazing. Well, you don't need a Stairmaster for Santorini then. You're good. All right, Sonny.
No. What you don't understand, and I'm going to qualify that, is that I am probably just, cardio is probably bad shape as that you are. It's just that, I can still go pretty hard for 30 seconds. and for Vince Russo, I don't think I need to.
I think we could all go pretty hard for 30 seconds, but not much longer. All right. Hey, I'm not going to keep you any longer. Thank you. Keep in touch, right. and we'll stew over that shoot fight idea, and we'll get back to you on that. Good luck tonight in Dallas, and we'll talk to you down the road.
Thanks a lot, man.
I want to thank Sonny Onoo for coming on and doing about almost 90 minutes. And I know he was standing outside the arena there in Dallas where he's working, and it's hot out. So I really, really appreciate it. And I'm going to have to sleep on this shoot fight, Sonny Onoo versus Vince Russo. I kind of chuckled at it when he mentioned it, but being a businessman and somebody who likes to find ways to hey, let's just be honest. Find ways to make money. Find ways to put on events. We have the CWF Fan Fest that we talked to Kevin Sullivan about that we'll get in more detail as we get closer to the end of October. But I'd love to be able to be a part of something like that. And curious what you think. Hit me up on Twitter at David Penzer, at Penzer Ringside. Any interest in seeing a shoot fight kind of martial arts match between Vince Russo and Sonny Onoo? I'll tell you what, I don't know how interesting the actual event will be, the actual match will be, but I could guarantee you the build-up might actually rival Conor and Mayweather with the entertainment factor, and that's not easy to do. There's a lot of stuff that they could so-called shoot with, and as we all see in this world of social media and podcasting and internet, Vince Russo is not afraid to shoot from the hip as far as his past goes and things that have happened. So, like I said, I chuckled at it, but it's interesting. I have to sleep on that one and see if we might be able. Hey, Sitting Ringside presents could be a first ever podcast presents a wrestling event. Stranger things have happened. Probably it'll never happen, but it's fun to think about. Anyway, we thank you again for joining us. We're humbled by the fact that that you listen, and urge you to subscribe if you don't already. We're planning to do the Inside the XWF episode with Brian Knobs coming up here in the next few weeks. I actually am looking forward to October. We've been promised an appearance by WWE Hall of Famer Diamond Dallas Page once he gets back from the UK, where he is on a promotional tour. And it was great to talk to DDP this week, and he's looking forward to coming on. So mark that in your calendars for a few months from now, and that should be fun. But until next week, we encourage you to follow us on social media, on Twitter and Instagram. And until next week, I'll be sitting ringside. You guys take care.
Follow David Penzer on Twitter at David Penzer. Also, make sure to follow the show on Twitter at Penzer Ringside. You've been Sitting Ringside with David Penzer on Radio Influence.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.